Hey everybody, welcome back to SharePoint TV. Woo! Look who joined me today, Mr. Mark Kashman.
Rolling in.
So Mark, glad you could join me here. You're about as far away from me as our offices are.
I know. We're usually one office away, and today we were 2 rooms away.
Yeah, look at that. So here we come, all the way live from Las Vegas. Mark was instrumental in making a lot of our keynote happen yesterday morning, and there was just a ton of announcements for OneDrive,
There were a ton of announcements, and actually I'm going to cheat and show you from one of the presentations that we just did, the actual full roadmap, and just talk through a couple of them.
Sweet.
So what you'll see here is pretty much everything that we've been talking about for a little bit. Oh, that's right, it's duplicate. All right.
Seattle was looking
now
nice.
It's coming through. So we're covering up the cloud, but you see the roadmap going into 2019. So available soon. Some of these things we've talked about, but we just announced about half of this. A big one is if you're in the OneDrive web, you'll see now we have 320 file types that you can see previewers for. And they're not just thumbnails, they're like actionable. I can click through a PDF without leaving OneDrive. I can see my Word documents in Office. But some of the more complex ones, like think about a 360-degree image.
Right.
You know SharePoint Spaces, but what if I just have a nice image file that gives me a full look of what Miami looks like? I can see that and just interact with it within the OneDrive and know, A, is it the right file I was looking for? Yes. And if not, move on. The other one is we have a really large partnership with Autodesk, and now we have the ability to have a DWG file that has all the layers of the architecture that you're working on. And so you can see a nice thumbnail, you can expand that and actually start to interact with the different layers. And if you want, you can take it into the Autodesk web app, AutoCAD web app. And the native file actually is stored still in OneDrive or SharePoint, but when you launch into the AutoCAD web app, it keeps the file in the right place, but obviously gives you the full power of what they offer through their tools.
That's pretty cool.
So file viewers are getting better. External sharing is getting better. Now you can make more granular choices when you create sharing links. So you used to be able to only block download on sort of the anonymous type links, but now as you start to select individuals, you can give them view access and limit if you want them to not be able to download, which also limits them to not be able to print.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. The other thing is we've introduced what we call differential sync, and differential sync has been available for Office documents already. So if you make a little change to a slide, we're not going to sync the entire PowerPoint over the wire. But now for any document, imagine you're working on a video file that's stored in OneDrive, and you're using your editing program on your desktop. When you make a change to a scene, you add a title or whatever in the movie files can be pretty big. If we had to sync that, all the time, every time, even the entire file, it would really drain the bandwidth and it would really slow your work down. So now we just sync the changes. So on all files, we sync only the delta changes.
So now I can work on the plane.
Maybe that deserves a clap. Differential sync, differential sync. So there's a lot we're doing on the sync client to help you realize if there are any errors, to help you get yourself out of trouble, and even to request help. So you can do a lot in the sync client. In the web, we're actually doing one of the cool features that got a lot of claps in the keynote, which was we're calling it request files. So if I want to, in a secure way, send a file, I can do that today. But if I want to receive it in a secure fashion, I can do that by simply sending a request for files, which is a link or an email. When the recipient clicks on it, they will only be able to upload and see the files that they're contributing. If I sent out this request for proposals to 4 or 5 people, they won't actually be able to see each other's proposals, right?
Right.
But they can securely go through a link, upload their document. I will be able to see all of them because I own it. I start from the folder, send out my request, they send their files in a secure fashion, and then I can take action on them once they're in my domain.
Wow.
So request files is pretty cool, and it's really easy to do. You just click on a folder and click request files, and it'll take you all the way through.
Wow, and that's rolling out soon?
That'll be rolling out later this year. So there are a couple of things in the middle column that if you see in request for files is one of our top requested features. So we saw that people were requesting a feature, so we gave them request files.
They're requesting request files.
Yes.
Sweet.
But one of the things that we're doing to help people be able to be more clear about what they're looking at, and when they're seeing what they're looking at, to have it be more relevant to them. So we've got 2 new views. When you're on the Files view, you'll be able to see files that are recommended to you. And that's using your friend, the Microsoft Graph. Bill being the search guy.
That's a good friend.
It's a good friend. So to keep you from searching too much, we're going to recommend things to you right at the front in your files view. And also based on files that have been shared with you. Sometimes people get lost with this big long list of files, or if they're looking at it from an email perspective, it's really hard to dig through your email to find an item that's been shared with you. Now we'll actually try to give you that relevance based on that scope of files that have been shared with you, things that are popular around you. Popular around me is what we call it. So you probably already knew that one because that was a search-driven one.
Yeah, I I'm looking at this list and there's just a ton of stuff that people have been desiring. In particular, popular around me, which you always are. Popular around me is a really cool feature. Personally because it is search-driven.
Yep.
But it's just amazing seeing the stuff that trends around you is just really cool because it's always useful. One of my favorites, @mention email notifications.
Oh yeah, super helpful because you may call out to somebody saying, "Hey, I'd like to get your attention on this," and they may have caught it and flagged it in their email, or they may not have seen it, but automatically will trigger 7 days later this new email that says, "Hey, did you remember?" And even you'll get a notification, especially when they do take action, that so and so did something with your file. Yeah. So it's a nice round trip.
Definitely like differential sync. Every time I'm on an airplane now, I will feel much more confident in purchasing Wi-Fi. So
how many times did you fly down to Las Vegas?
In the last?
Let's say in the last 5 months.
Near 30.
So that's a lot of differential sync. I can imagine that you probably wouldn't have made it here without differential sync.
Yeah, I would have never made it here without differential sync.
Differential sync gets a clap. Differential sync. Oh, we already clapped for differential sync. We just keep clapping for it.
That's an amazing feature because I know on connections that just aren't the best, and we've all experienced it, particularly on the plane. You invest a small, you effectively mortgage your home so you can use the wireless, and so does everybody else. And then you've got your PowerPoint presentation. You're pretty confident that you're going to be done.
And you don't want to slow other people down.
Somebody embedded a video or a large image and failed to click the little compress button in the PowerPoint backstage, and you're just stuck.
Curses them. Yeah. This is to that person. Lightning strike them.
So that's a really cool feature. What else did we have that we announced?
Well, one of the things that we showed it live on stage, a Windows virtual desktop on Windows. And in the blog, we gave a visual representation of logging into a Windows virtual instance from a Mac. But the best part is that because once you're in an instance of Windows, even in a virtualized environment, OneDrive is there to bring all your files. So imagine, we always talk about the value of having your files on your mobile, on your desktop, on your home machine, across all your devices. Even in the virtual environment, if you log into a new session on a Windows virtual desktop and you log in as yourself, the sync client, of course, just recognizes that as an instance of a new device, and all of a sudden on that desktop are all of your files, even your documents, your pictures, and your desktop. So you really, the nature of how we've sold OneDrive as being this great backup tool, even in the virtual environment, you're up and running with all your files, and they're available to work on just like you would expect.
That's pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool. It's really neat to see it. I always love Windows running on Mac, or vice versa. It's always fun to see.
Yeah, I can put parallels to use now.
Do you want to see some of it?
Yeah, I definitely want to see some of it.
So let's get out of our PowerPoint and move to see a little bit about a couple things. I'm going to take a
you don't
moment
look like
to sip.
Mark anymore.
So we are now in as our friend Randy.
Okay.
This is Randy Wong, who is one of our lead engineers that actually was demoing with me today and co-presenting.
You can see Randy up above me.
Kudos to Randy. Let's give him not sad, magic. Randy's magical.
I thought you were going to give Randy a sad
No
trombone.
sad trombone for Randy. He's exciting. So the first view when you come to OneDrive, and just to orient everybody, if I had gone from my email in the morning to then work on my files in the afternoon, here I am clicking on the OneDrive icon. It's taking us to the main files view. This is that recommended view that I talked about. So at the top,
look at that.
These are all the files that are trending around me based on interactions I've had with my coworkers. So, Bill, we've been interacting here for a couple of days. I don't see any files.
Well, yeah, well, you're Randy. I haven't interacted with
No files from Bill. We'll get them coming soon. So we got recommended files. This is always changing, so I always expect to see something new here at the top of the day, or if I'm in here a couple times a week. But it's always trying to recommend things that are relevant to me based on people that I work with and based on topics that I'm interested in. The other thing you'll see is we're getting to get kind of a new look and feel. So we've got the new color to our folders that are no longer gray. They're golden, so they pop out. And this comes through on the web
Golden folders.
and mobile. So design-oriented aspect to actually move us closer to the look and feel of the full Office suite. And with these folders, you can start to do some unique things. The next thing I want to show you is request files. So if I have a project that I want to request proposals for, I can go in at the top. Sorry, this is me going back to my list. And off of special projects, I can now, it's hiding from me. What happened? Let's try it off of a different one. I apologize. We may have to move beyond request for files because it was just showing just a moment ago. And we'll come back to that in a second.
That's what happens when you show early code.
That is what happens when you show early code. But what's really nice is what happens is pops up a dialog box. You can rename it to request certain files to actually be actionable to the person receiving them. Send me your proposals. And then they are able to upload their documents, send them to you. They can't see anybody else's documents. And in that folder, which I was trying to get back to, in that folder you'd see everybody's sent files with their name appended to each file.
So is it kind of like a secure file transfer?
It is, but on the request side. So it's not me sending it to you, it's you sending it to me, to my environment that I control.
Does this work outside of the I'm assuming this works outside of the
This is a
organization,
request to anybody that I email to. So I can type in, and it follows the same policies. If I'm not allowed to externally share, then I can't externally request files. But if I can externally share, I'm sending an email to a Hotmail account, to a contoso.com from a fabricam.com. They don't have to be federated. But when they sign in, they have to be who they are. So it has to be the same rules that apply when I'm externally sharing. So the other thing I want to show you is save for later. So if I have a document that somebody sent to me or something that I'm working on that I want to be able to easily get back to without having to navigate folders or go to somebody else's shared library, I can now select an item, click Save for Later here, or you'll see the bookmark icon show up here. Click it, and now it'll appear in my Save for Later folder or view. So as I click into Save for Later, you'll see that things are falling apart on us here. Let's try a little refresh of everything. Okay, we'll go to the Discover view because that really is something that hopefully will kick us in. And we'll try Save for Later one more time, third. Little demo fail.
That's all right.
So
basically what happens is you can bookmark a file. So if there's something interesting something you want to get back to, and just remember you're getting ready to leave the office, it's like 4:55 in the afternoon, and you get an ask, hey, Mark, can you get that expense report done by this evening? And you know you're about to get in your car, you don't have time to really jot it down or put it in a to-do list, add it to Planner, create a task in Outlook, so you just click on Save for Later. You can go back to that view, it'll show all those files you bookmark, and I'm assuming you can unbookmark them when you're done?
When you're done with them, it just says Remove from Save for Later or Remove from Saved. And it'll do it just in an instance. And the other thing that I was just scrolling down here to show you, and I think we're hitting some maybe Wi-Fi slowing down, is if you save a document, it's very similar to saving a news item as well. So from SharePoint Home, you'll see all of your saved assets, documents, and news. In OneDrive, when you click Save for Later, which we're going to try, you would only see items that are documents saved for later. The other thing that we're something's happening with this tenant. So we're going to move to something that was working. So we're now in a shared library. So if you notice, I'm still in OneDrive, but I've now navigated to a document library in a SharePoint team site. So we've really improved this experience across a number of locations. Of course, SharePoint document libraries look great in SharePoint. They also now look great with the full feature set, full fidelity, here in the OneDrive UI. So if you notice, I'm in shared libraries, sales and marketing team site. This is the main document library. all the rich formatting comes through. If there's one of these assets that I want to pin to the top, I can do that. And I'm not leaving the OneDrive UI. And I'm also working with the full metadata, full views, full whatever it is that I want, including, of course, sync. And if I were to turn to show you this in Teams, this will take just a second to load.
Well, that's pretty cool because now you don't have to context switch, which is the one thing that people generally don't like to do, is context switching between apps. And now OneDrive becomes this single pane of glass that enables you to access and work with all of the files across Microsoft 365.
That's right. While this is loading on the back end, we'll show you at least sort of our lead-in of sort of what is OneDrive these days. OneDrive is the Files app for Microsoft 365, which means, like you saw us take a look at, it actually gives you access to all your files, whether they're your OneDrive files that you personally own, whether they're part of a team site, or like we're looking at here, part of a Teams team. So if I go into that general folder of the sales and marketing team and go to the files, you'll see that we're rendering it with that full functionality. I can go full screen in Teams, still in the Teams UI, and you can see there's that document that I pinned.
Yep.
There's the formatting that I had coming through, and of course I have that full functionality to be able to pivot, to be able to only limit and filter by, and you'll see that we've got all the same controls pop up right here in line in Teams, same as you would experience in OneDrive, same as you would experience in SharePoint, and the same experience will also be in Outlook.
Yeah, that's really cool because you preserved all the column formatting.
Yep.
You can pin to the top. I'm looking at it right here on the screen.
Yep.
That's in front of us. I'm proud of you for getting those 5 documents completed. What we should do, since you're logged in as Randy, is we should mark all of those as incomplete, just so he has to go back to work to finish off.
I think it's a great idea.
His branding elements PowerPoint there.
So certainly people, when they're in Teams or in SharePoint, in OneDrive, wherever they're accessing their files, if they want to take them on the go, they can sync them from anywhere now. That's part of the files experience that's consistent all the way through. And so just to transition a little bit at what that experience looks like, if I'm in my OneDrive, I can of course see all the files, the rich thumbnails come through.
Look at that knee.
I can work with my files, I know.
That's an incredible knee.
Yeah, fortunately the knee came through. That's a DICOM image, and so we render the nice preview there. If there's anything that I want to do here from a sharing perspective, it's actually the same sharing mechanism as you would have coming through on your web interface. It pulls through a similar sharing dialog that allows me to share as a link, not as an attachment.
Right.
And it gives me all these options where I can go and create the type of link that I want to create. Maybe I only want to send it to a specific person. I want them to only be able to view, not edit. And I'll send this to my friend Diego. Or I could send it, if I had external sharing turned on, which I do, I could send it to an external person, send it to myself at my Hotmail.
Oh, we're all going to send you email now.
That's okay. I don't mind. And then when I send it, it'll send a crafted email with a nice formatted title and information about the document, and of course a link that will only adhere to that, what I allowed them to do. But that's if I just want to, of course, view my files and work with them. Now, if I want to make decisions on what I want to take with me, and I'll go into the real example. So we came to the SharePoint conference, and we had about 320 people working on a team site. This is that document library with all of our content. And we can show it because it's now public, right? So, but if you notice, there's just blue clouds, which represents that this cloud is in the this file is in the cloud, but not yet taking up any space on my hard drive. And just to show you, of course, the pieces of content that I did find important to have with me all the time, I chose to right-click and keep them on this device at all times. But let's say one of these sessions, of course, I just finished today, was the OneDrive session. So I'm actually going to remove that from my hard drive, free up space. It's going to do a little bit of conversion and take it off of my hard drive, but of course, keep it in the cloud. So if I have this set of assets, which I believe was in the couple of gigabytes, if we look at the properties, you'll see that out of 112 gigabytes that were available to me, only 23 of those gigabytes are taking up space. And that's across more than just this
That's wild.
set
So
of
coming
assets.
down to the SharePoint conference, we brought with us 120 gigabytes of presentations.
Yeah, we had a lot.
That's a lot of presentations.
I'll go back
that's
here.
Just one
that's
big
just
embed.
that's just the sessions, right?
Right.
So of course we had everything from the keynote that was helpful to look at and refer to make sure I got something right. All of the FAQs, all of the booth planning, whatever it is that I needed. As a member of that team, I can go in here, navigate to it, see what it is I'm looking for. Maybe it was something I've already opened, so it should be in my recent here. But if it's something new, double click on it, download it, be able to access it, and not take up that space on my hard drive until I need to.
That's great because devices are getting smaller and smaller, at least in respect to storage.
That's right.
You know, a lot of people, don't feel like they need the storage, and then if they're like me, they sync for the first time. This was before files on demand.
Yeah.
And you don't have any
drains
storage
you.
anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a really great feature, particularly when you travel to events like this. I definitely did the same thing.
Yeah. One thing I also wanted to show you is a capability that we're just improving month over month, but it's been a very popular feature called Known Folder Move.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it works on this PC, I actually have 3 folders that we all automatically back up to the cloud for you and treat just as other OneDrive files and folders. So automatically with Known Folder Move, you can choose to back up your desktop, your documents, and your pictures folder. And so for me, wait till you see all the desktop items I'm backing up. One single text file. But it's in the cloud. I don't actually have to take up that space. 1K. Anyway, so if I move into my other files, my other folders, you'll see my pictures. I actually have a lot of pictures on my desktop, which originally, before I moved into having them in through KFM backed up by OneDrive, they actually were all taking up space on my thing. But now that I'm done with screenshots in the blog, I'm going to take a bold move and free up space so that now this is all going to live just in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And now all my screenshots that I had taken for the SharePoint conference are available to me, but no longer taking up space on my hard drive.
That's pretty
But they're still just in my pictures folder.
And then with differential sync, those big pictures, as you're
Yep.
working with those.
If I make a tweak, a change, a crop, add a title to it, that certainly would come through. Just because a couple of our things were not working for us, I'm going to open up a separate browser and go into full screen mode to show you a couple of pictures so that I can show you a little bit about the OneDrive blog that we put out there and just walk through a couple more things that I wasn't able to show. So give me a second.
For those that are following along, either here at the conference, at home, or elsewhere, links at the top of your screen. You can click that and just keep that available to you. Share it with others. Screenshot it. But let's see what we've got.
All right, so this is OneDrive, the new blog, just to hone in on it. If you go to aka.ms/OneDrive/blog, you'll see the new blog that we posted yesterday. It's all about all the announcements made in the keynote and in the overview session that we had this morning. And as I scroll down the page, you'll start to see a lot of things that we've been talking about. This is the Save for Later feature. If you save something, it'll go into your Save for Later file. If you go in and add new documents, you can now actually add them with the full fidelity, obviously across OneDrive, Teams, Outlook, and SharePoint. This is what it looks like when you go into an AutoCAD file. So you can see the full rich file. You can comment. You can see the file activity. You can see a lot of things going on. If you had a 360-degree image, of course, it looks like something that you can interact with. Right. You can swipe left and right, up and down. When it gets into sharing, this is actually now what it looks like to share inside of Teams. And this is a GIF that'll run, so I'm going to cheat here and let it do its demo. But basically what you're doing is you're adding a link to a Teams chat. And it makes it look pretty, so you can see the file. You can change between the different settings so that the links work as expected. And in the chat, when somebody clicks on it, based on who's in the chat, they'll be able to access the file in a way that I intended them.
Yeah, that's a lot better than just attach file and uploads, and then it just kind of persists there and hangs out, and you don't know what to do with it. I like that.
Exactly. This is the same action if you're in Outlook, so Outlook web app. You can go in and you could even just copy paste a URL to a file, and we'll then inherit the name of the file and of course the file type. And as you'll see in this action right next, the sharing dialog comes up even inside the Outlook web app. So they're making a choice here and changing what the link will do once it's sent. So this is the popular Around Me feature that's a part of the shared environment, shared experience.
One of my favorites.
One of the things we actually didn't talk about a lot, but it's actually kind of a fun one to do, is if you have a PowerPoint and I want to send you specifically a slide to look at. Today you would send a link to the slide and say, go to slide number 34. But now you can actually go in at PowerPoint Online, go to the file that you want to share, and what you can see here is it says link to the slide. And then I send you that link. It'll open it up in PowerPoint Online on that slide that I directed you to.
That's great.
So it's a really nice deep link.
That saves me a lot of email, because I'm generally saying, hey, Mark, can you take a look at slide 11? Does that look right? And then I'll send you a link.
And I'll say, I'm not sure which one you're talking about. You said slide 11, but somebody just edited it and changed it around.
Yeah, somebody added a slide or deleted a slide. Now it's either slide 12 or slide 10.
Yep.
So that's really cool that you can point people directly to the things that you want them to work on.
So this is our inception moment. And I think with inception moment, this is something that'll take us into overdrive with OneDrive. So imagine you just sped off and you're on a Macintosh, a Mac, and you want to remote desktop into a virtual instance of Windows. That's what this looks like. And you can see an instance of OneDrive running in the background with all the files that are same capabilities that we were just walking through. You would see things that were still in the cloud or available to the desktop, the virtual desktop. And again, whether you're on a Windows or on a Mac, you'd be able to remote into a Windows virtual desktop, and this is now in preview, and OneDrive certainly plays its role as you would expect on any Windows machine. The last couple things are from a mobile perspective. There's now a new picker when you're in Outlook that's driven by OneDrive. So I go to attach a document. We want you to attach it the same way as we do in chats, and the same way we do within a regular email, is to be able to attach it as a link, not as a document. So you can send very large files or small files, control how you share, and you go through those same steps. You just pick your file. It can be a scan that you just took. It could be a document that's stored in the cloud. Whatever that is, you can easily attach it through the Outlook mobile application. And then through the OneDrive app, a couple of improvements here is now after I either do a scan of a receipt, or I've already been working with a number of documents, all different document types, now including PDFs, those will show up in your recent view, and that's recent everywhere. Backstage of Office, in your Office.com experience, and now through the OneDrive mobile app, if you go to the recent pivot, which is down the bottom, the second tab, you'll see your recent scans and recent PDFs showing up as files in your recent view. And then the last one, and I'm going to take a drink here,
is to get started with OneDrive.
Yeah, get started with OneDrive. Go.
And take a drink. Are those bottles on the bottom? What are those?
Those are small bottles to help my throat feel better. But I'm waiting for you to get started with Microsoft OneDrive.
Well, you know what? Since you've mentioned it, it seems all pretty cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is get Windows installed. So I've got my Mac.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get Windows installed so we can take care of that. I've got my phone.
Okay, we'll wait.
I'm ready to go there, and I've got my bottle as well.
All right,
so
you've got the middle.
You've
got the middle bottle. So one of the things we're doing is a lot of people have enjoyed annotating their PDFs after they've scanned something, or if they were sent a PDF and they were wanting to mark it up. Change this. Let's move this over there. They've got a new design palette of how you actually work with annotations, and it makes it really much more clear on what's the art of the possible. But then actually, when you start doing it, it's a lot more finger friendly. It's a lot more easy to accomplish the annotations that you want to put on there. So we highly encourage people to download and try out the OneDrive mobile app if they haven't. But certainly if you have it, try some of these things today. Like Bill is going to right now
I'm just getting ready to scan a receipt over here.
How much was that dinner? Oh, that's a little bit out of our expense budget. But anyway, that's a lot of what's new for OneDrive. There's certainly a lot of things that we've been doing the last year or two to be very competitive with Sync, to be very competitive in mobile, to have a great sharing experience that you feel like you can control, and not to get too far away from IT to be able to further control what you can and can't do based on policies of either different projects, different teams, or different individuals and how much they want to protect data and, of course, files and information.
So that's pretty cool. So before we wrap up, where do people go to get started?
That is a great question.
Outside of just identifying 5 different water bottles to choose from.
Yeah, so all the water bottles are available today for the low price of $9.95. Special lightning deal. If you call right now, $7.99, you can get that free water bottle that's already been drunk by Bill today for, did I say $7.99? No, $5.99. So if you look at here on the screen, there's a lot of links to different either session materials or broader materials for our blog, where you can go to learn more about adoption if you're looking to get best practices to roll out OneDrive to your entire organization. And of course, there's a lot of great community resources. If you have questions, if you have feedback directed to the engineering team, we're certainly always open to that. The last thing, if I have just 2 more minutes.
Sure, go ahead.
We often get a common question, and it's in the same set of slides that I just want to walk through. That it just is, when I'm working with, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Teams, how do they all work together? You know, Microsoft 365 gives you a whole host of applications, but when you think through working with files or beyond files and sharing and working together, we've got these 3 applications, OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. And we get a lot of questions, what to use when, or where do I put my files? So hopefully this will address that. The first thing is they're great applications. They're not versus each other. They work in unison across the day and across whether you're working as an individual, whether you're working with your team, or you're ready to communicate across the organization. There is a consistent, intelligent files experience. You saw me demo a few of those things or pointed out in terms of when you're working in OneDrive or working in Teams on the Files tab in a channel, you get the same rich experience, same previews come through, same ability to sync, and the same ability to share, and of course there's a lot more. But let's take the pivot of looking at it from a OneDrive perspective. What's OneDrive's role in these 3 applications? And it's to be that single files application in Microsoft 365 to all your files. And of course you can then work with your content, take it with you, share it, and that's of course a great experience across mobile, across Mac and PC, and whether you're offline or online. But it really does give you visibility to your files and files that are stored in more of those team collaboration spaces, SharePoint and Teams. When you pivot and take what is the role of Teams, first from a files perspective, of course we've got a native files experience. When you go to a channel, you'll see the Files tab, and that's now that new rich experience that's powered by that OneDrive files experience or that files control. So you have the same experience, and you're consuming both information from SharePoint document libraries, which give you that rich experience of where you're actually storing your files. And there's actually a OneDrive experience inside of Teams, so that if you're a Teams-oriented person, or if you're in Teams for that period of time, you can actually still navigate to your OneDrive without leaving the Teams user interface. If you pivot then, real quick, the other thing, of course, beyond files that Teams does, is it's where you go to chat, it's where you hold meetings, it's where you do live events. There's a lot of things beyond files that give it a lot of rich capabilities of what do I use Teams for. And the last little pivot here is then the role of SharePoint. SharePoint is the content service that powers both OneDrive and Teams. But if you look at it, how you can bring in content from SharePoint beyond files, news, lists, sites themselves. And it also goes further. It's going to be where you build out your full modern intranet for portals, the new SharePoint home sites that we just showed off, where you might build your knowledge management centers, your custom apps and solutions. So it really is a pivot to providing that content service to SharePoint itself and to OneDrive and Teams. On the left, you'll see what I mean when I say consistent file experiences that are intelligent. And on the right-hand side is really getting into more of that compliance and governance capabilities when you look at intelligent content services that are pervasive across all of these 3 first-class applications in Microsoft 365. And the last click, just to sort of hit it home, if you think about how do these all work together, these are great apps. You certainly use in many different use cases, and we don't expect a person to live in one all the time, but when you're in one, you should have a great experience to be able to access all your files and work with them in a great, consistent way. And if you're on a Teams meeting and you want to go grab a link, you shouldn't feel like you have to hop over to another application. You can do that right inside one versus the other. But they all work great together. They all come as a package of Microsoft 365, and the team is doing a lot of great work to make sure that it's a consistent experience, especially when you work with your files.
Yeah, for sure. That's all really cool. And you know, there's a couple of things here. I'm still waiting on Windows on my gum-free Mac.
Yeah.
Twice in the last 2 days, somehow
gum-free.
I've put it in gum.
Oh.
So we've gotten away from that. I've cleaned it up.
Was it already been chewed gum?
It's
or
already been chewed gum, and it wasn't mine. So it's gone through 3 thorough cleanings. I'm taking most of the paint off the back, but
nice.
We're getting there. So I'm going to wait for Windows to install. Then I'm going to start syncing some files just because I can.
You
took a picture of my receipt. Hopefully that expense gets approved.
Yep.
And we'll see if anybody requests that file as soon as I upload it.
How about I request your receipt from you?
How about you do
And
that?
then I'll put it on my expense report.
And you can
complain.
You can claim that as being your own. So once again, we were here with Mark Kashman talking about OneDrive. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we've got Dan Holm. And then throughout the course of the afternoon, we've got some exciting stuff on Microsoft Search Administration because it's got a brand new, shiny Search Center. Still has that new car smell. So definitely stay tuned to check that out. And we've also got a awesome cognitive services demo. So it's a great demo using OCR, working across a couple of different endpoints, incorporating some AAD data into it as well. That's going to be coming up at 4 o'clock with Fabian Williams. And then at 2:30, we just slotted in some exciting news that's getting announced or was announced at 11:30. So you're going to find out about that here this afternoon. So thanks again, Mark, for joining us on SharePoint TV. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks.